Thank you very much indeed, Mr Cole-Hamilton. I now call on Graham Day, who will be followed by Finlay Carson for around 6 minutes. Mr Day.
Thank you, President Officer. I very much welcome the scheduling of this debate because of the importance of the subject matter and a potential sea change in the bringing together of the support being afforded those within our veterans community requiring that, wherever they may live. The Veterans Mental Health and Wellbeing Action Plan is a very significant step forward in Scotland's commitment to supporting those veterans who have paid a legacy price for their service. And the fact the recommendations are a co-production between people who know and understand what it is to operate within the armed forces, those who work with veterans, and those with expertise in health and mental health and service design and implementation. For me, that gives them important added credibility. But if I may, President Officer, I want for a moment to go back a little in recent history to offer credit where it's due for the position we find ourselves in today, with the Veterans Care Network established and the plan being taken forward. Firstly, the part played by the former Veterans Commissioner, Eric Fraser, and all of this must be acknowledged. It was Eric's report, Veterans Health and Wellbeing, a distinctly Scottish approach, which set us off in this direction. But at the risk of embarrassing him, let me also acknowledge the role of the Cabinet Secretary as well, for it was Keith Brown, when he previously had responsibility in government for veterans, who established the post of Veterans Commissioner. Credit also to Keith Brown for the part he played in getting us where we are today, and can I say how pleased I am to see him once again holding this responsibility. Presiding Officer, it's widely recognised that in many ways Scotland does better by its veterans and their families than other countries. That has never generated, nor should it ever lead to complacency. We've always strived to do better, and the creation of the Scottish Veterans Care Network is proof of that. The action plan for me is clear evidence of the network already proving its worth. Historically, as former MSP Mike Rumbles, who championed this cause in the last Parliament, claimed, there was a degree of postcode lottery about access to services for veterans. Almost entirely born out of a lack of understanding more than anything, in my opinion, but it was there. Where it was good, where the services were good, they were very good. But where they weren't, well, at the heart of the problem was a failure to grasp that veterans, at least those perhaps in most need of support, don't always readily seek it, especially if they feel they'll be dealing with folk who don't understand them or what they've been through. And even when they want help, they may have little idea how to access it. Presiding Officer, that's why the establishment of the Care Network and the implementation of this action plan is so essential. We need all our veterans to have direct, where possible on their doorstep, access to the services they and their families require. And the announcement today about the implementation board to oversee all this is very welcome. As the action plan highlights, to deliver what we'll need will require flexibility depending on population size and rurality. In some places, we'll need to establish a new and distinct mental health and wellbeing service, and we'll need to be creative around pathways and make use of digital resources and technology. As others have noted, the 2022 census will be essential in helping us better understand where our veterans are located, in order that we best shape and provide the services they may need. Presiding Officer, it's important to recognise that the vast majority of service leavers adapt to civilian life very well. But MOD figures show that of the 1,578 medical discharges from the forces in 2020, just over a third were on mental health grounds. We also need to remember there's often a delayed onset to PTSD, sometimes as much as 14 years. So there is no doubting that a need exists and will continue to exist for mental health services and more. And the more in all of this really matters. As the plan highlights, what's needed is a better joined-up, holistic approach where matters such as housing, education, employment are also addressed and the needs of the wider family are taken into account. Presiding Officer, there is no questioning the commitment of this government to supporting our veterans community. There are many in that community who, whilst they might not necessarily share the politics of this administration, would willingly attest to that. Most recently, that's been seen in the Scottish Government stepping in to provide financial backing for the Unforgotten Forces Consortium and the creation of a £1 million fund to provide direct financial relief to those third sector organisations who support our veterans in Scotland. There's also been commitment to increase the Veterans Fund to £500,000 per annum from 2022-23, and the Cabinet Secretary's announcement today around V1P and combat stress is hugely important. There has been ongoing work in other areas, specific work in the areas of housing, education, mental health and social isolation. However, there is more to be done, and the action plan helps point the way in that regard. I particularly welcome the recommendation that the community-based veteran mental health and wellbeing service should include peer support workers. I also welcome the requirement for the planned regional implementation teams to include veteran navigators. But of all the recommendations contained in the action plan, perhaps 2.3 is the one which best demonstrates how switched on it is, as evidenced in particular by the call for the development of specific processes for early service leavers with complex psychological needs. This is a cohort we all know to be requiring particular attention. Presiding Officer, the action plan for me represents a major step forward in the development of the kind of pulled-together support which ought to be available to our veterans wherever in Scotland they reside. If we can deliver on it in full, then alongside the excellent work continuing to be done by the veterans' third sector, then we really will have a truly holistic, first-class offering for our veterans. There is much to be done to ensure the plan's ambitions are realised in their entirety, but its content and the Cabinet Secretary's comments today leave me with a sense of optimism. And on that note, I want to encourage members to support the motion in Keith Brown's name. Presiding Officer.